Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Gregory Martin, aka the Super Producer, and we're back with another Producer Tips video. But before we get into the video, please don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. It keeps you notified whenever I post a new video, and it also helps out with the YouTube algorithm. And with that being said, let's just jump right into today's video. In today's video, I'll be sharing with you guys how I produced my first ultra low budget film. Now, making a film is a balance of creation / art and economics. And generally, filmmakers who are able to meet both of those expectations tend to have long careers and continue to find work. The things that I'm covering in this video are all from my perspective, from my experience, and are things that work for me and things that I use to help me. Some things will be generalized, and I will try to be as specific as possible. And if after watching this you have any questions, please feel free to leave me a comment or send me an email. According to the SAG-AFTRA theatrical agreement, an ultra-low-budget film is a theatrical production shooting in the United States with a maximum budget of $300,000. Now, this $300,000 is actually a little bit new to me. Now, I know the last ultra-low-budget film that I signed to, the maximum was $250,000, and with some diversity hires, it bumped up to $300,000. But the maximum for my first feature was $250,000. And that budget is supposed to cover the entire production, from prep, production, and post-production. So you cannot even go over $300,000. So your budget cannot come in at $300,000 and $1. If you do, you'll probably be bumped up to the next tier where you'll have to pay actors the difference from those rates. Now, $300,000 is not a lot of money at all when it comes to making a film. You're not going to be able to retire off of your fee or pay outrageous fees to actors and crew and things of that nature. If you're thinking about hiring Scorsese or Tom Cruise, forget about it. You're just not able to afford those people. But what a ULB does give you is an opportunity to work with professional actors and also give you a way to make a feature film and showcase your talents to see that you're able to work on a very confined budget. With a budget this low, the script that you choose becomes very, very, very important. And that's where I made my first mistake in producing this film. Originally, the idea was to make this film for $1 million. However, we kept running into a financing ceiling, trying to get to that $1 million mark. The closest money that we could raise consistently without problem was about $300,000. Everything else that we tried to do over that, we just weren't able to do, mainly for the fact that we didn't have the right casting attached. You know, no one really wanted to give us money with some relatively unknowns, and then the names that we were able to conjure up, they didn't mean anything in the international marketplace. So instead of trying to sink $1 million into this picture, you know, we felt like the best thing to do to get this film shot was to reduce our budget to that $250,000 budget mark. And that seems fine, very normal. However, the part that we made a mistake in is we didn't really adjust the script to really fit that $250,000 budget mark. Just from the nature of the film, we still need to keep in a lot of the different elements that we had in the script. So we still had the 12 locations that were in the original $1 million script, 19 shooting days. And we also had a ton of different B-roll that we had to capture as well, trying to give the film the feel that we wanted to present. And we also weren't able to reduce the number of characters without affecting the story. You know, we pretty much had to, you know, really cram $1 million film into a quarter of the budget. And that was such a headache. If I had to do it over again, I wouldn't particularly do this film just because it doesn't really lend itself to doing it really well. Even though I'm very proud of the film, I think it actually turned out better than we actually expected, but it was a lot of work. Preferably next time that I actually do a ultra low budget film, it definitely has to be something that's 1 to 3, 5 max locations, not a lot of characters, and specifically something that's in like the horror genre, a thriller, or a drama, because you could probably find a fairly decent script in those 3 genres that don't need a lot of different locations. That was one thing that really killed us in this production, Like literally every day was a company move. We were in different locations the entire time except for like 1 week. My advice: cut the locations, cut the characters, try to be as concise as possible, and that's really going to help you allocate the money for the budget where it needs to be. If you focus, if you have those things kind of ironed out. Now, it took me some time to put together the production team. Obviously, like I said, this was my first feature film, so I really wanted to hire people and get people involved who had a lot more experience than I had, and also it gave me an opportunity to really watch and learn different things that kind of goes into a long form feature versus a short form feature where you're only there for a day or two. As far as directors go, originally we had a director on the film who really helped bring the project up, and we actually were going to produce the film in his home state. Unfortunately, the numbers didn't make sense to shoot it there, and so we actually had to change the location. And after changing the location, we weren't able to get him. We found another director, interviewed him, and then actually after submitting an offer to him, afterwards I just got a bad feeling. Just having the conversation that we had with him, I just really felt uncomfortable and felt like it could be, I just felt like, down the road in the process, it could be something that we bumped heads with. So I decided to rescind that offer. And then like a few weeks later is when we actually interviewed the director who ended up actually directing the film. And hiring him, and the other producers and DP, those were people who I was working with prior to it, so I kind of already knew who I was getting, what kind of personalities and things like that. So that was actually pretty easy. The only thing left with the crew was really hiring the rest of the department heads for all the other departments, and that actually went better than I expected. The only thing that I really didn't like about was just the amount of time it took me to interview all these people. Like, I was actively involved in all of the interviews, all of the offers, all of the negotiations. It was a lot of Starbucks meetings, so I was hyped up on coffee like every day it seemed. Eventually I got through it, and we got to a point where I felt like we put together a very solid crew, an experienced crew, and a crew that has personalities that would work well on set. And that's what I thought I had, except I was presented with a rude awakening right before the film started, and I regret not following my gut instinct. One of the department heads was someone who, they did something just insane prior to going to production. Against my better judgment, I felt that we should have just moved on for that person, just because I just had a feeling that this seed that was sown was going to grow into something bigger. But I was pushed not to do it just because we're so close to the actual start date. And it's one of these things that I just now have always in the back of my mind whenever I'm hiring someone. Like, it was bad. I almost came out of my normal character. And typically no one gets me like that. There's a very select few people who can get me to that level. And kudos to them. They did a really good job of bringing that person out of me. But if I had to do it all over again, I definitely would follow my gut. Like, I wouldn't care if it was a few days prior to the production. That energy was just not needed on set. Yeah, I should have nipped that in the bud, just like I did with the director. That's kind of what I learned from that experience, for better or for worse. One thing that you have to keep in mind when shooting a film for this low of a budget is that you're just not going to be able to pay everybody. The only rates that you're really going to be obligated to pay, no matter what, is really the actors, especially if they're union. You're going to have to pay the union fees plus the pension and health. But everything else I felt was negotiable. And that's how I treated it. And though I wanted to negotiate prices lower, I also wanted to make sure that I was respectful for the technicians and the department heads. The thing that I did was I took the union rate and I calculated the cost at those rates for the entire shoot. Then I took a percentage of that of that fee and lowered it. And that was kind of like my jumping off point. I know that this is probably the max I can give them, but this is what I'm going to offer them. I'm going to offer them maybe a little bit lower than what the max I'm willing to pay. And if they kind of come back and say, hey, you know, we can't do it for that, we can do it for this, and it's still within my max, then cool. And for the most part, if I recall, salary was not one of the things that, you know, most people balked at. I think all the salaries that I offered were competitive, and I think that was very important, because one thing I didn't want is to have that kind of spill into the set. You know, someone coming to the set doing extra work and they're making this very minuscule amount of money. It's not like, you know, we were sitting on that money and, you know, just, you know, banking that money. That money that we save always went back into the production, whether it be craft services or whatever. Like, we always put the money back into the production. It wasn't something where we were trying to just skim money just for the sake of skimming money. The equipment, I did the same thing. I had an idea of what we wanted to spend. What I had the director, the DP do was make a list of what they wanted to use, like what camera they wanted to use, what lenses they wanted to use, what gear they wanted, what grip package, gaffer, whatever, Steadicam, whatever. Give me what you want. And basically what I was able to do was I took those lists and I went to various different rental houses and was like, hey, say I may have $20,000. I may say I have $16,000. I say, what can you do? What can you do to put together for me? And sometimes they were able to put packages together that were under that number. Some of the packages were just, some people actually probably went above that budget. And even that was fine, because like I said, I already had this baked in number. And for the most part, even with me, you know, lowballing what I actually had, I was still able to get maybe 90-95% of all of the equipment I always asked. I never had an issue with not being able to get that stuff, you know. And especially it being a feature film, I found that more companies were more willing to work with me versus it being just a simple, 1 day, 2 day shoot. Now, this probably may not work with like the big rental houses, because, you know, they really don't have to. They get a ton of, people coming in. They have the name brand recognition. And the other ones, there are no slouches. They just don't have the recognizable name that the other ones do, just because everyone uses these. The equipment's the same. It's just the company is different. And the same thing goes with like the locations. Locations was another thing that we got very savvy with. Instead of having to hire a location manager, we kind of divvied up between the producers, you know, the locations. We were able to go into different towns, different places in the city, and get very competitive rates. You know, we just use Airbnb. To our surprise, there is a filter where you can find film-friendly houses, and we were able to find a vast variety of different houses that we were able to use. And even another thing that we tried to use was we actually went to real estate agents. Like, we went to real estate agents who had clients, and, you know, we had some agents speak to their clients and say, hey, you know, maybe we can get in and use your house or your exterior for a fee. So really just being resourceful is what really helped us, thinking outside of the box. Like, even one of the other locations, there's a lot of filming that happens there. Some big studios film there. And, you know, we were able to talk down the person who manages that from having us pay a 5-figure fee to, you know, a few $1,000s, and that's the only way that we were able to do our film. Like I said, we had 12 locations. I don't know how many people who can get 12 locations filmed with only $300,000, but we're able to get everything done and bring everything in under budget. Film financing is the one thing that sinks most filmmakers' ability to shoot their film. For my film, financing was through equity, a debt financing on a distribution contract, and also a post-production deal that we were able to get. Typically, a film this small doesn't have all those components. You know, maybe 95% of ultra low budget films are usually a pure equity play. However, for me, I was able to find a variety of different deals for this film. Just by kind of pounding the pavement, going to film markets. The Cannes film market was very beneficial for me. That's why I'm so high on film markets, because they provide a very great opportunity to meet with financiers and companies who finance movies. We found a post-production deal in Europe. It was something that I had no idea that people were using. There are some companies who are able to do that, to give you a discount if they're guaranteed that work. And usually you just have to make them whole on usually the back end, or they'll be able to qualify for some kind of like local tax credit in their either country or state. But usually there's ways to make the deal work where it's beneficial for the filmmaker, for you shooting the film, producing the film, and also the post-production house who's actually helping you finish the film. With the ULB in place, you're able to use any and all SAG-AFTRA actors. It doesn't matter who they are. Like I said earlier, you're probably not able to get Tom Cruise or some of the bigger name stars, but you're more than welcome to request their services if you feel ballsy enough to do that. Be my guest. For me, the casting was not that important for me to get the film fully financed. We wanted to have some recognizable stars, and that's kind of the route that we did go. We went and found some fresh new faces, and then we wanted to marry those young adults with actors who have a recognizable face, where you would see them on screen and you'd be like, oh, I've seen this person here or there or on this and that. We just wanted to make that connection. But for us, our film was not predicated on having X star in the film. Our film was more predicated on the story. But even with that being said, we were really surprised once we did our casting. We put our casting on Actors Access, and we were very, very, very surprised with the level of actors who submitted. Even some of the actors who submitted were not necessarily A-listers. They were probably more B or C-listers who probably had a very high moment in their career, but they've kind of been relegated to this kind of tier where they're doing a lot of work in bulk. But it was really cool. It was really cool to have that. It really spoke to the story. It really spoke to people really connecting with what the story was. We put the script out there. We let people be able to read the entire script. I think that really helped. And these actors who, like I said, they've had their moments. They were willing to work under the ultra low budget. The minimum that you have to pay actors, I haven't checked it recently, but the last film that I did, it was $125 a day. And so people are expecting that they're not going to make a ton of money. Most of these actors who do it, they're more likely just going to do it because either a couple things, they have a break in their schedule, they either like the story, and they're willing to do this project for a few days before they go back and do their big TV episodic where they're going to make tens of thousands of dollars. This was probably the most stressful thing I've ever done in my life, and I did the Marine Corps boot camp at Parris Island. So yeah, I would say I have a good jumping off point. And especially doing something for the very first time, and then I'm taking someone else's money, someone else's $500,000 or $250,000, and they're trusting me at the end of this to put together a coherent product where that we can sell it and they can make their investment back, and if we're lucky, some interest. Like, I was okay during pre-production, but the closer we got to the actual production day is when I started to kind of get nervous. Once I saw that first deposit, that first wire deposit into the account, that first $70,000, I'm like, this is real. I have to okay, we got to deliver. Spend this money the way we said we were going to spend it, and make sure we have enough of it to get through to the end. And then, like I said, on top of that, having to manage all these different locations, managing all of these egos. Everyone was different. Some crew got along better with others. Managing to get through all of the pages that we set out for the day. Those 19 days felt like two or 3 months for me. Like it was so crazy. I think I may have lost 10 to 15 pounds during that shoot. The only thing that really helped me get through that was I invited a couple friends to set. That's the beauty of being the producer. You can do these things. Just having those people be on set and seeing my world for those 2 days, that meant a lot to me. That meant an absolute a lot to me. Like without that, I don't think I would have gotten through that. And then also just speaking with my parents on a nightly basis. I think I felt more comfortable during the middle of the shoot. Once I knew what was expected on a weekly basis. But still, like, it was just a absolute headache. But it was one of these things I was actually able to learn from and figure out what I need to do going forward. Next time I have shoots, how to really decompress. And I've gotten better on my subsequent films, but that first film was just a nightmare in my head. It was one of these things I just could not wait to be over. But I'm so thankful for the opportunities that film has allowed me to get into. So managing your stress is very important for your health and for your sanity. Now, I know I discussed a lot and went into detail about how I made my first film, but the most important thing to do, guys, is to have fun. Have fun with your collaborators. Like, the business of filmmaking is very tough. Some films can take years. You have to go through the rejections. You have to go through the second guessing. You may even quit for some time. But when you finally get the chance, you have to enjoy. You have to enjoy it as much as you can. So have fun with the process. I hope everyone who watches this video finds this very helpful. And please, like always, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. And I will see you guys on the next video. Peace.